made public statements about this case in various endorsement interviews. I hereby disqualify myself in this case. The case is now reassigned to Justice Court Department 3.
It's been a while, but we have an update on the Henry Ruggs situation. And this story is without a doubt the most tragic story that I covered within the past year. Hell, it's probably the most tragic story I've ever covered in my entire career. And we're going to bring you guys everything in regards to how it's progressing, what the future's looking like. Before we get to the content, I wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for your incredible support. Both the Flight Mike and Microphone experienced its greatest week on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram since we began. Honestly, I would not be where I am without your guys' support, especially over the past summer when things were a little bit more difficult and my future was looking a little bleak as well. So from the bottom of my heart, man, I just wanted to thank you guys for your love, for your support, for staying by my side through thick and thin. I'm very blessed to be doing this job, and I'm very blessed to have an audience like Mike Mafia. Now that we get all that out of the way, work! So I've made almost $5,000 playing this game over the past couple months and posting my picks and selections onto my Instagram story for you guys to follow them. And the game that I'm obviously talking about is Prize Picks. Right now, when you use my promo code Microphone, they'll match up to $100 of your initial deposit with another $100. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, yesterday I had Killian Hayes getting less than 21 points, rebounds, and assists. You went into the third quarter with 18, and he finished the game with 20.5. I can't tell you how euphoric that feeling was when I saw that I was able to make $210 off of a pick that came within 0.5 of not hitting. So if you want to check out Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code Microphone for a free 100% deposit match up to $100. And follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my picks on Instagram. Mic check 1212. What's going on, everybody? Henry Ruggs has a tattoo on his leg that states Roderick D. Scott's date of birth, the date of his death, and an epitaph for a young man who never saw his 18th birthday. I will do something great, and I will be something great. For those of you guys that don't know who Roderick D. Scott is, on the morning of March 3rd, 2016, Henry Ruggs and Roderick Scott headed north on Interstate 65. Henry Ruggs was originally supposed to drive, but he caught the flu, so he stayed back while Scott rode with 4 other passengers, including his longtime friend Darian Adams. According to Adams, the driver was speeding and was distracted on her phone. He had asked her to slow down. He was sleeping in the back seat, unrestrained, when he awoke to the thump of the tires riding over rumble strips, but Adams somehow managed to doze off again. Shortly after that, the car started hydroplaning and then left the road and overturned. The next time he woke up, Adams was lying in the middle of the road. He had broken 2 bones in his neck. He asked where Scott was, but nobody at the scene or the hospital would tell him. Ruggs was at home in his bed. His phone kept ringing, and Henry Ruggs kept hitting ignore. When he finally answered and heard the news, he wanted to rush to see Scott, but his brother, Cavante, had taken his truck to the hospital. The Ruggs ran roughly a mile to Baptist Medical Center South to get to Scott, and over there he found out his friend was dead. Upon finding out that his friend was dead, Henry Ruggs said he lost himself, said he carried around guilt because he didn't drive him that day. Ruggs would even say that I honor him every day. Everything I am, everything I have, I honor his memory, because he always told me I will do something great and I will be something great.
I honor him. Everything I am, everything I have, I honor his memory. Because he always told me, I will do something great. I will be something great.
Now you might be wondering why I'm telling you this story. Well, a few years later, Henry Ruggs would find himself in a similar situation. After spending some time at Topgolf, where people frequently drink while hitting balls as far as they can in Las Vegas and in other select areas, Henry Ruggs decided to get into his Corvette and drove 156 miles per hour until he crashed into the car of Tina Tinter, where Tinter and her dog would get trapped in the car that was burning on fire and got incinerated to death. Authorities would say that Henry Ruggs' blood alcohol content, which was measured 2 hours after the crash, was 0.161, which was more than twice the legal limit in Nevada. Authorities say that Ruggs tore through Las Vegas's valley west of the Strip at 156 miles per hour in his Corvette Stingray. The Clark County coroner ruled in December that Tinter and her dog burned to death in the crash, saying, "I've been involved in the justice system for over 40 years as both a defense lawyer and a young prosecutor. I've never been involved in, or am I aware of, another criminal case involving somebody driving 156 miles per hour. So at this point, the Las Vegas Raiders had no choice but to cut ties with Henry Ruggs, the first wide receiver off the board in a truly deep and special 2020 NFL draft class that contained wide receivers like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Jerry Jeudy. This draft class would go down in infamy, by the way, for the John Gruden era, which last year was a horrible year for the Las Vegas Raiders in general, but 7 picks later, they would also draft Damon Arnett, so not necessarily the greatest draft haul for the Las Vegas Raiders. And just like that, one of the most unfortunate and saddest stories in the NFL occurred. At the time, Derek Carr had this to say about the player that was supposed to be the Raiders franchise cornerstone.
Did I not let him know that he really could? I'd be there for him at 3 a.m. I want to be better. He needs people to love him right now. He's probably feeling a certain type of way about himself right now, and he needs to be loved. And if no one else will do it, I'll do it.
The interim head coach Rich Bisaccia said that we want to express our sincere condolences to the victim's family. Kadarius Toney was probably the most empathetic and tweeted out something very controversial, saying, "We young, everybody makes mistakes. He messed up. Don't drag him for it. That's goofy to me." And Nick Saban said, "We're going to support him through it. We have a lot of compassion for the victims, and our thoughts and prayers are also with them." With that being said, once you get released by the team that drafted you, and once you're awaiting a case for a DUI that resulted in the loss of life, your future is incredibly uncertain. But through it all, we saw some very interesting things over the past year. Primarily, something that I originally thought was incredibly unlikely was that Henry Ruggs was reportedly holding out hope for an eventual return to football. As of March 16, 2022, Henry Ruggs secured permission to leave home confinement twice a week for 3 hours at a time to work out at a training center that caters to pro athletes. It's unclear whether Ruggs hopes to play football again. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just needs to have something to do, something to break the monotony, something to give him hope, an outlet for the feeling that he is trapped at home, a way to use God-given skills that will begin to erode in time. Whether Henry Ruggs will make it back or not is a different conversation for a different day, because on one hand, you had Dante Stallworth, who was suspended for 1 season after pleading guilty to DUI manslaughter. 1 year later, defensive end Leonard Little was suspended 8 games after an involuntary manslaughter plea. But before we even get there, we have to figure out how this court case is going to go for Henry Ruggs. And originally, there were some things that were really interesting. At first, Henry Ruggs' side tried to argue that his blood alcohol concentration should not be used in court. Check this out. Henry Ruggs was in court that morning where his lawyers argued that the results of his blood test should not be admitted as evidence. Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman denied the motion. There was a story that would come later. And that was the last bit of update that I was able to bring you guys. Yes, there was footage of Henry Ruggs working out, but for the most part, it's been relatively slow from that front. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The current situation is there's a huge dispute over how Henry Ruggs' case is going to be ruled. As a matter of fact, the judge is being accused of showing some favoritism in the Henry Ruggs case. Check this out. A Nevada judge on Wednesday delayed a long-awaited hearing to determine whether former Las Vegas Raiders player Henry Ruggs will stand trial in a fatal 2021 crash, saying it can't proceed until the case is properly assigned to a judge in the lower court. The decision came in response to a request filed Monday by attorneys for Ruggs asking the state judge to block Las Vegas Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman from presiding over the case. Until recently, Zimmerman had been overseeing all DUI cases in Las Vegas, including the case against Ruggs, as part of a specialty court program. But those cases were transferred earlier this month to a different judge appointed to take over the specialty court. Ruggs, who is out of custody on bail, is charged with driving under the influence on November 2nd, 2021 and slamming his Chevrolet Corvette into the SUV of Tina Tinter, causing the vehicle to go up in flames. Lawyers Richard Schoenfeld and David Chesnoff argued in their filing that Zimmerman singled out Ruggs and violated his right to equal protection when, without notifying the attorney, she decided to keep the former wide receiver's case on her calendar while the rest of the thousands of DUI cases were transferred to a new judge. "It's outrageous," said Chesnoff. "We've been like a deer in the headlights." So this is a really interesting situation. Imagine there's a bunch of DUI cases that originally were going to this judge, but they all got transferred over except for one particular case, and that's Henry Ruggs' case. So Clark County District Judge Jennifer Schwartz said she wanted to hear from attorneys representing Zimmerman and the Justice Court before reaching a decision, and scheduled another hearing for March 22nd, at which point she is expected to deliver a ruling. Gesturing to the courtroom gallery where Judge was seated with relatives, Chesnov added that Mr. Ruggs has been dutifully defending himself in a very difficult case. This is a critical stage of a criminal proceeding, and a judge just walks down the hall and goes to another judge and says, "This is what I want to do." Zimmerman had been scheduled to hear evidence in the case on February 1st after delays. Now that hearing to determine if Ruggs will stand trial isn't likely to take place until after late March. According to their court filing, Zimmerman said that she and the new DUI specialty court judge came to an agreement that she would finish hearing the case. She had previously made some substantive rulings in the case. It is not uncommon or extraordinary for a judge to retain a case to finish hearing it, she told Schoenfeld and Chesnov. Ruggs currently faces more than 50 years in prison if he's convicted, and the former wide receiver was released by the Raiders shortly after the crash. So they're accusing the judge of singling out Henry Ruggs, which made this situation a little bit more sticky. We have an update on that as well. Las Vegas Justice of Peace Harmony Letizia ruled Monday that she doesn't have jurisdiction to move the case back to the Justice of Peace Joe Bonaventure's courtroom. Caitlin Newberg noted on February 21st that Bonaventure recused himself from the case because he spoke publicly about it while running for re-election last year.
I was running for re-election during 2022, and I had several conversations about this case. I made public statements about this case in various endorsement interviews and throughout my campaigning for re-election last year.
So Ruggs' DAs, Chesnov and Schoenfeld, filed a motion asking Letizia to undo Bonaventure's ruling. Bonaventure presided over Henry Ruggs' first court appearance in November 2021 following the crash. He ordered Ruggs to be held on $150,000 bail and the highest level of electronic monitoring if the 24-year-old was released from custody. Chief Deputy District Attorney Eric Baumann said at the time Ruggs was traveling at approximately 156 miles per hour moments before the crash. State prosecutors who said Ruggs' blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit at 0.16 at the time of the crash sought $1 million in bail. So that's where we are currently. There's two judges that could preside over this case, and clearly Henry Ruggs' defense wants Bonaventure because instead of Bonaventure ruling that Henry Ruggs should be released on a $1 million bail, he got released on a $150,000 bail. It seems like that judge would rule a little bit more favorably in the case of Henry Ruggs, whereas Zimmerman may be a little bit more harsh on Henry Ruggs because she said that blood alcohol concentration levels will be taken into account in this case. And that's where we stand currently. Truly, this is a horrible situation all around. I feel tremendous empathy for Tina Tinter's family. I even feel a little empathetic towards Henry Ruggs because I could only imagine the amount of pain he's going through having done what he has done. I mean, the man lost his spot in the NFL. He fumbled generational wealth. He ended the life of a poor young woman by making a horrific mistake. And I said this on this channel during the Jalen Carter situation that we covered a while ago. There are instances where you do have the opportunity to make a horrific mistake, learn from it, and make sure it doesn't happen again without damaging your life significantly. And then there are cases you don't have that opportunity, where your mistake is so bad that it causes you to never have the opportunity to potentially learn from this mistake. At least Henry Ruggs is still alive, but he will have to have this on his conscience for the rest of his life, unlike the woman that drove Jalen Carter, whose life ended as a result of drinking and driving. At the end of the day, you guys already know how I feel about this. There is no reason to drink and drive whatsoever. There's no reason, especially nowadays when you can have an Uber come pick you up from anywhere you want at any time that you want, especially if you're an athlete that could pay a driver to drive you wherever you want. It never really made a lot of sense to me. Let me know what you guys think about this situation in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.